British Prime Minister David Cameron is given a military welcome in sunny Canberra, standing shoulder to shoulder with his Australian counterpart. Both nations are facing similar threats from radicalised nationals who have gone abroad to fight for the so-called Islamic State. But these British nationals could now face losing their passports. In a speech to the Australian Parliament, Cameron made it clear firm steps will be taken to tackle extremist fighters returning to the UK.
And we will shortly be introducing our own new counter-terrorism bill in the United Kingdom. New powers for the police at ports to seize passports, to stop suspects travelling, and to stop British nationals returning to the UK unless they do so on our terms. New rules to prevent airlines that don't comply with our no-fly lists or our security screening measures from landing in the UK.
Under the temporary exclusion orders, British citizens suspected of terror-related activity could be barred from re-entering the UK for up to 2 years. Also, passports could be confiscated for at least 30 days, including from those under 18. And there could be tighter aviation rules. Airlines found not to comply with the UK's requirement to screen passengers and stop suspects from boarding planes could be fined, and any breaches could lead to a prison sentence. The proposals were outlined by the Prime Minister in September as part of the counter-terrorism bill. They're expected to be introduced to Parliament by the end of this month. But the proposals have stirred controversy, with huge concern whether it is even workable given other established laws on citizenship, immigration and human rights. Furthermore, excluding Britons from returning to the UK, even if they face the most serious national security allegations, could amount to making them stateless. Nonetheless, Cameron did stress that more had to be done to fight extremism from within the borders of the UK.
We must ban extremist preachers from our countries. We must root out extremism from our schools, universities and prisons. As we do so, we must work with the overwhelming majority of Muslims who abhor the twisted narrative that has seduced some of our people. We must continue to celebrate Islam as a great world religion of peace.
Yet with much of his plans and ideas facing legal criticism, he might just find his plans going down under.
Well, Mr. Massoud Shadjareh, the chair of the Islamic Human Rights Commission, is joining us via Skype from London to discuss this further. Mr. Shadjareh, firstly, in your opinion, should the UK ban the Britons fighting abroad from actually entering the UK?
Well, I really think that the issue is that if anyone is involved in any sort of criminality, then we should bring them back to UK and charge them, and if they found guilty, they need to face the consequences. This thing is ridiculous because all the time we try to extradite criminals back to UK so they will actually be dealt with and they should actually face the consequences of their crime. This idea that they should not be allowed in is bizarre because terrorism is an international crime. If we stop them at the borders and keep them in France or Germany and Belgium or anywhere else, it's outrageous. They could actually be involved in acts of terrorism and hurt not only people over there, but hurt our interests. The other issue is that, the Prime Minister has said that these individuals will be stopped coming into the country unless they agree to be prosecuted or watched. Since when we are asking a possible criminal their approval of being, charged? We don't do that. We don't ask people to be watched if there are possible security issues. The reality is we are watching thousands and hundreds of thousands of people without their permission. We are even watching the heads of the state of European state, the chancellors and so forth and so on without their approval.
And
this seems to be just a ploy to please a few backbenchers, and in reality is going to create another sort of principle which ordinary innocent people without any due process, without going to courts, without anything being proved against them, will find themselves being sort of discriminated and actually dealt with and criminalized.
And Mr. Shadjareh, of course, this choice that you're talking about, if they don't agree to being prosecuted in the UK, they have the choice of actually not being allowed to enter. Does this somehow, and this could somehow render them stateless, does this go well with international law? And how will David Cameron be able to step to somehow make sure that they can bring this forward without actually causing it to go against international law of causing people to go stateless?
Well, it goes against international law, but it goes against our own national laws. You know, we don't ask approval of a would-be criminal to prosecute. We prosecute because we got evidence. If we don't have evidence, we can't prosecute. And you know, I don't understand this motion that we ask the possible criminal, do you want us to prosecute you or not? You have to approve us prosecuting you. This is actually ridiculous. It's only a fool will come up with this sort of procedures, which not only is unworkable, but it's actually ridiculous. Can you imagine the other way around? A French would-be criminal or terrorist is in Britain and France doesn't allow him to go back to France, and he has to live here and stay here because we can't deport him. There will be outcry in Britain for if there is such a procedure is put in place. This is not workable policy, and the reality is that if someone is a criminal in Syria, we should take him away from there. We should bring him down here, and we should find them guilty, prove the fact, put them in jail so they won't hurt anyone anywhere else in the world.
Mr. Cameron says that the reason he wants to bring these procedures in is for domestic security, to make sure that these radicals who have gone abroad don't come back to the UK and pose a threat to the domestic security in the country. So in his case, he thinks he is sorting out the problem.
If they end up being in France and blow up British embassy down there or British consul or British businesses, that's fine. That's okay. If they go and stay in Syria and kill hundreds and thousands of Muslims and slaughter their heads, is that okay? I mean, this is outrageous. Terrorism is something we've been told day in, day out is an international crime, and internationally there should be nowhere for a terrorist to hide. And here we actually behaving in a sort of a racial exclusion, which has got nothing to do with fighting terrorism.
Mr. Massoud Shadjareh, the chair of the Islamic Human Rights Commission, thank you very much for joining us via Skype from London.